Only in Maine. Only in Maine would the guest speaker be the guy from the local lumber yard. It's like the only place in America where that happens. But as you might have some sense, for me, this is really like coming home. Like when I pull onto that little road in front of campus, I feel like I'm home. Every time I come here, I feel like I'm home. And I appreciate you listening this morning. I mean, one of the first things teachers learn is you learn to see and feel who's listening. And I know how this goes. You have to be here, but you don't have to listen. And I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you thinking, and I know this happens every week, or almost every week, but in that is a bit of an opportunity to maybe pick one or two things each week that connect with you, that you like, that you think you can use, that you can take with you for the cool things you're going to go and do. But I'm really happy to be here. I'm really happy to talk to you. I don't know if everyone can read this, but this sign is up on our wall at the office at Hancock Lumber. It's a piece of history. So one of the cool things about our company is it started in 1848. So you think about that for a second. So I taught history here. Here's how I think about it. Before the first cannonball was fired in the Civil War, our company was in business. And we've been in business uninterrupted ever since. And that's not normal. That's not normal. Like if you could go, I don't know if they have these records, but if you could go to the State House in Augusta and pull the records of all the companies that incorporated in 1848, we might well be the only one still in business. So this sign is from like the 1930s. So this was actually a real sign. Like when Hancock Lumber was working, we would put these signs up. And I bring this with me because we don't do this anymore. We don't have horses, and we don't put these signs up. And we went from a company that worked with horses to a company that was just recognized as Exporter of the Year. We have customers today for our mills in 15 different countries around the world. Our biggest customer is Lowe's. So we supply every Lowe's store from Maine to Virginia, and we supply every Lowe's store all the way across Canada to British Columbia. And the only point I'm making with that is for our company to go from here to there, we had to be really comfortable with the concept of changing. Because if we kept doing what we've been doing, we would not still be in business today. And I think one of the most important thoughts or concepts in life is the comfort level with changing. And I thought about that for sure in coming here this morning. Because why the heck else would you be here? You're here because you want to bring about some change in your life. There's a lot about who you are that you like and you want to keep and you trust, and then there are some pieces of who you are that you want to think differently about. And being open to change is one of the most important ingredients, I think, in being successful. And that's a big part of the experience here at Bridgton Academy. I want to just say first that I love this school. I love this school. And the reason I love this school is because of the people who end up here. I'm going to talk a little bit today about how our brains are wired. But the way my brain is wired is when I look at an organization like our own company, when I go around our own company, I don't see buildings, I don't see trucks, I don't see machinery, I don't see equipment, I don't see inventory, I see people. And I don't see employees, I see people. And there's a difference. I don't see employees, I see people. I don't see customers, I see people. And when I look at this school, that's what I see as well. I don't see the beautiful buildings or the neat scene, landscape that we live in. I see people. And I don't see students, I see human beings who, yes, are students, but you're a lot more than just students. But there's something about the kind of people that this school attracts, the families who are willing to make sacrifices to send their sons here. The faculty and staff who choose to work here. And then the most important ingredient, you who chose to, or was willing to, or got dropped off, however it worked for you, who came here. And for the most part, I don't know you. There might be one or two people here I know, students, but really I don't know you and you don't know me, and we might be meeting for the first time, but I actually feel like I know a bit about you because of my experience here at this school. And here's the big thing I know that really gets me at hello for you, is it would have been easier this year for you to do something else. But you came here anyway. You could have stayed home, you could have gone to college, you could have gone to junior college, you could have gone into the military, you could have done something different that might in the short run have been easier. And you get probably all these images of friends of yours who are in college and living the college life, and they don't even really understand where you are or what you're doing, perhaps. What is this school? It would have been easier for you not to come here, and yet you came here anyway. That's a really big point to make. Because what it says is you're willing to make some short-term sacrifices for some long-term benefit. And that could be something that separates you. Because so many people today are impatient. I want what I want right now. I want things to be better right now. I want things to be easier right now. But you probably already have some sense when you think about your life that it doesn't really work that way. And that's what I want to talk about today. I'm going to talk about what I think about as foundational ideas. I read a really interesting book, interesting for me recently, called Management Rewired. Management Rewired. But what the book is really about is a look at what modern science tells us about how the brain functions and how better understanding how the brain functions can help us all better understand ourselves and the people we interact with. And the core point of that book, which perhaps seems too simple to be worthy of producing a book, but the core point of the book is that everything we see and everything we interpret is filtered through our own individual brains. And that's why no one experiences the world the same way. Some people like that movie, some people don't. Some people like that food, some people don't. Some people like that school, some people don't. Some people like that class, some people don't. Some people like listening to Kevin, some people didn't. That's why, because we all are filtering what we see through our brain. Or to put it differently, it's all invented. Everything you're seeing, everything you're feeling, everything you're thinking about is being processed by your brain. And how the brain interprets what it's interacting with is in large part based on your past experiences and what's happened to you and when you've been burnt and when you've been hurt and when you've been helped and how you've internalized those things. My favorite little quote, I love quotes, so all I'm going to do this morning is show you a few quotes. But one of my favorites goes all the way back to the philosopher Plato, who simply said, "Know thyself." And I know in my life, when I've made breakthroughs, it's basically come when I stopped worrying about what other people needed to do, and I started paying more attention to what I needed to do. I stopped worrying about how other people needed to change or improve, and I started investing more energy in how I needed to change or improve or think differently. So I'm gonna talk about some foundational ideas that just shape, I think, how I think. And I'm sharing these with you not at all because they're right. It's just like a confession. This is how I think. When I look at the world, these are some things that my brain processes along with everything that I start with this before I show you some of those thoughts. One, this is my favorite definition of the word entrepreneur. And I'm showing you that today because I think that's you, by the fact that you're here. It would have been easier to do something else, and yet you came here anyway. You were willing to take a risk to see if you could start the long lifetime road of creating something new. Okay, here's my first foundational idea. This is one of my favorite quotes. Success looks easy to those who weren't around to watch it being made. So I got a couple things I'll show you here. One, I'm just so excited about what I'm going to show you. So you probably can't see this, but this is the cover of the Bridgton News, and there are three Lake Region girls basketball players. They are holding hands, huge smiles, bursting on the court to cut down the nets on the championship they just won for the second year in a row, for the fifth time in 8 years. And this is particularly fun for me because I'm related to all three girls in that picture. The entire backcourt, this is again only in Maine, the entire backcourt is the last name of Hancock. All three of them. One's my daughter, the other two are my nieces. But when you look at that picture at the end, the success picture, doesn't that look easy? Doesn't that look simple? And yet I know the athletic orientation is in this room, so you know that's not that easy. It looks easy at the end, but there's a lot that goes into that. You think about someone who you think is particularly skilled, so skilled that it looks easy when you watch them. But you know getting to the point where it looks that easy is extremely difficult. It's very, very hard. And this reminds me, this thought, of my favorite book. I love books, because I love ideas. And in books there are ideas. And if someone said to me, what's the one book you would have me read? It would be this book. I brought 4 copies. Last time I spoke at chapel, I brought a bunch of copies and I left them too. I don't know if they're still in the library. But I brought more copies. It's called Failing Forward. Failing Forward. Turning mistakes into stepping stones for success. And the basic premise of this book is the single most important factor that separates what happens to people is how they respond to failure. Because the only certainty in life for all of us is we're going to have a lot of it. We're going to have a lot of it. I just think about my own experiences. So people would look at me from a distance, perhaps, and say, he's successful. Well, here's how I think about my experiences. I have failed way more often, it's not even close, than I have succeeded. I have learned much more from failing than I've ever learned from succeeding. And I believe that failure is more valuable than success, which is taking that traditional view of success and failure and just flipping it inside out. Ben Zander, who is the former conductor of the Boston Philharmonic, used to teach his music students when they made a mistake, hit the wrong note at the wrong time. At the first opportunity, he would teach them to stop, chuckle, and say out loud, "How fascinating." That's That's what he encouraged them to do when things didn't go right. To step back and take a look, because here's another thought that I'd like to suggest to you. Don't be too quick to judge what happened to you, because it might feel like it's a negative, but let's just wait and see what happened. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the movie Charlie Wilson's War. Has anybody ever seen that movie? Pretty cool movie, Tom Hanks. And it's really about the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. And at the end of that movie, they talk about a great little Afghan fable that's titled We'll See. Here's how the fable goes. A boy in a poor village in Afghanistan is given a donkey, a young boy, 8 years old. This is a very rare event. Having a donkey is a sign of wealth. It's not something that most people have, but he's given a donkey. And this is so exciting that everyone in the village runs to the boy's grandfather and says, how exciting, how fortunate, your boy has been given a donkey. And the grandfather, who's lived through some things, pauses and he says, we'll see. So a few months later, the boy is riding the donkey through a mountain pass and slips, falls, nearly dies, has a terrible accident, is in bed for months. And the day this accident happens, all the people in the village run to the grandfather and they say, oh, how terrible, your boy has had this accident. And the grandfather pauses and he says, we'll see. Well, as it turns out, the very next day after the boy had his accident and is confined to bed, the Soviets invade Afghanistan. And every other 12-year-old boy in bare feet is handed a rifle or a stick and is sent off to war to fight the Soviets, overmatched, many die, this boy stays home and lives. And the point of that little story is you don't necessarily know how what's happened to you is going to play out unless you step back and let it play out. So here's another little quote I like. In this life there will be lessons, and those lessons will be repeated until they are learned. And the core concept there to me is we're here to grow. We're here to learn. We're here to experience some things that are difficult and see how we respond to them. This comes from the book Failing Forward. The book talks about the 5 rules of being human. So nobody's picking on you when you experience things, because we're all experiencing things. The 5 rules of being human: you will learn lessons. There are no mistakes, only lessons. A lesson is repeated until it's learned. If you don't learn the easy early lessons, they get harder. And you will know you've learned a lesson when your actions have changed. I really like that. I think the most powerful characteristic, I guess I would say it this way, that an individual can possess or focus on is resilience. It's the most powerful characteristic I think an individual can possess or focus on. And that ties a little bit to not dwelling too long on the cards you've been dealt, on what's happened to you. So here's another quote I like. No matter what your situation is, there are people out there who had it better than you and did worse. And there's somebody out there who had it worse than you and did better. And the focus point is not what has happened, it's how you're going to move forward and respond to that, which ties to another quote that I really love, which is this one. The price for growth is to give up your grievances. Someone help me here. What's a grievance? What does that word mean to you? Can you help me?
Something that gives you grief.
Yeah, something that gives you grief. Excellent. Sorrow. A grievance. It's an injustice. Someone injured you, they wronged you, they disadvantaged you, they made it more difficult for you than needed to be. You feel like you were injured by that event or that experience. So what this quote is asking us to think about is that the price for growth is to be willing to let go of those grievances. Take what you can from them and move forward to the future. I'm sure you can prove you're right. So Steph Pemper, good friend of mine, she's the head women's basketball coach at the United States Naval Academy. Played at Boise State University, got an assistant coaching job at Harvard, and about 14 years ago became the head women's basketball coach at Bowdoin. And Bowdoin at the time did not have, generally speaking, successful sports programs. And the belief why was that academically it's a very difficult school to get into, and so they couldn't compete for the best athletes and players because the academic standards were so high. That is until Steph showed up and started winning championships. They went to the Elite Eight NCAA 7 years in a row. They went to the Final Four of those 7 years. And she tells the story everywhere she goes of the first year she was there. She was sitting in the coach's lounge with the coach of another sport who was complaining about how it was impossible to get a top-level team to this school. And Steph put down her coffee, turned to that coach and said, well, I'm sure you can prove you're right. And I love that quote. So you think about think about situations in your life or examples that would fit that. I don't like this school. I'm sure you can prove you're right. I don't like this book. I'm sure you can prove you're right. I don't like that kid. I'm sure you can prove you're right. And this goes back, and I'm not saying you, I'm saying us. That's how we're wired, because all of this goes through our brains first. Okay, I'm going to jump over a little bit. So I've been doing, for no reason I can figure out, I've been doing quite a bit of mission work on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in the southwest corner of South Dakota. I have no reason to go there. I have all kinds of things here to keep me busy. But I've got my Lakota necklace on. I wear it all the time. I was there in the fall. I'm going back in the spring. I'm trying to help them with their housing needs, and I'm really interested in helping that community. And it's one of the poorest communities in America. There are 43,000 Indians that live on that reservation. They call themselves Indians. The unemployment rate is 90%. 1 in 10 people has a job. Of the 43,000 people that live there, 342 of them have a non-government private sector job. It's one of the poorest places in America. It's got the highest alcoholism rates in the country, the highest suicide rates in the country, dropout, you go on and on and on and on. It's a really disadvantaged place that has attracted my interest. But there's a Sioux Indian phrase that I've encountered there that I love, which when translated simply says, we're all related. And I love that concept, and I believe in that concept, and I've been trying in my own life to spend more time in what I think about as a no judgment zone. A no judgment zone. I spent a lot of time earlier in my life listening to what people said to decide whether or not I thought it was right. And I'm spending a lot of time in my life now trying to listen to what people say because I just want to know what they think. So I'm just about to start going all over the company. Every year I go to all 13 mills and stores that we have, and I sit down with a focus group at each location, 10 employees at each location. And one of the first things I say in those sessions is, this is a no judgment zone. And I really want you to feel comfortable with the fact that what you think is what you think, and what you think is important. It's not right or wrong. You don't have to think about whether it's right or wrong. You just say what you think and talk about why you feel that way and what you believe in. And I really think that there's an opportunity. The age of Aquarius has actually just dawned. Did anybody know that? I mean, that's a song that goes way back to when, but it actually just started. It just started. And it's a time, it's going to be a time on this planet for being more tolerant, more respectful, more patient, and more embracing of the fact that everybody's different, thank goodness. And I respect everybody for who they are. And the older I get, I just think the truth lies in knowing what everybody thinks and not passing judgment on it. Okay, a couple more thoughts I wanted to share with you to see if they were of interest. Here's the next one. And I think about it as a no entitlement attitude, which kind of goes back to the beginning of what I talked about. There's a book I love that refers to the two entrepreneurial decisions that individuals either make or they don't make. And it can be summarized in these two statements. Number one, I'll expect no opportunity in life unless I first create value for someone else. So it's taking what are you going to do for me and flipping it completely around and thinking about what can I do for you. And the simplest way I think about that is in your own life. If you think about the people, think about a couple people that you would really go the extra mile for. If they need something, you're there. And why will you do that? The answer probably is because they did a lot of stuff for you. And you see that, and you appreciate that, and you're willing to be there for that person. The more you do for other people, the more those other people will do for you. And then the second entrepreneurial decision is really in that first sentence. No one owes me anything. That's a big leap to make that statement. No one owes me anything. I'm going to depend on my own abilities to create my future. But it's still going to be hard. We're still going to spend a lot of time struggling, and a lot of time frustrated, and a lot of time not feeling great about ourselves. And that's what it means to be human. So this is my latest favorite quote. This is the one I find myself using the most often these days. Everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, then it's not the end. And I love the hope that's in that message. I love the future-based mindset that's in that message. Everything will be all right in the end. If it's not all right, it's not the end. Perseverance, resilience, a desire to grow. So the center on that Lake Region basketball team has been offered a bunch of scholarships. One is at the University of Albany. And in the women's basketball office at the University of Albany, they have this sign up on the wall. And some of the words are a little strong for me. Some of the words bite a little bit, but I like the idea there in this quote. Winners hate losing so much that they are willing to change. Losers hate changing so much that they're willing to lose. And I'm not really just talking about sports with that. I'm talking about grades. I'm talking about preparedness. I'm talking about self-reliance. I'm talking about the ability to control your future and your destiny. And I've found that openness to being helped. Openness to being helped is one of the most powerful concepts you can embrace. One of the first things I look at when I'm working with a student or a player is what I think about, I guess in basketball terms, which is coachability. Is this person ready to be helped? And there's no blame in that either. I've spent a lot of time in my life when I wasn't ready to be helped. So guess what? I was able to prove I was right, and I didn't learn much during that period. But the minute I'm like, wow, this hurts, back to the 5 rules, this is painful. Haven't I made this mistake before? It's like the movie Groundhog's Day. Look at me. I've said this to myself quite a few times. Look at me. Look at yourself. You're doing the same things and generally speaking, giving the same results. The definition of insanity, right, is doing the same thing and expecting something different to happen. And finally, when I get tired of that, I said, well, maybe I need to do something different. And this gets back to the brain science, because all things are created twice. The idea of doing something different starts here first. And the idea of being open to being helped starts here first. And of all the things that I would wish for you with your time here and when you go forward, is to let people help you. Let people help you. And I don't know of a better place in America to let people help you than right here. And one of the great things you could think about as you go home for break and as you come back to finish up is not just, is it May 5th yet? And part of that's understandable, but not just is it May 5th yet, or whatever graduation day is. It's what could I still get out of these last 6 or 8 weeks? What would I still love to get some help on? What haven't I felt safe enough to say is still bothering me that maybe I could open up on a little bit and think a little differently about? And when you're ready to do that, the people who will help you and the lessons that you run into will actually they'll be all over the place the minute you're ready to receive it. So in summary, what I wanted to share with you today was just thinking about your willingness to change, your willingness to respect others, your willingness to be helped, your willingness to keep your sense of humor because stuff's going to happen, how fascinating when it happens, your willingness to be resilient, your willingness to fail forward and learn, and a conviction that the greatest opportunities for you are going to lie in the future, not the past. So those are just some quick thoughts I wanted to share, and I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. And as I said, even though we haven't met, I feel like I know you, and the fact that you're here is a really big statement. And you should be proud of who you are, and proud of where you're going, and stay with it, and stay with it, and stay with it, and you're gonna get to the places that you want to go. Thanks for your time. And